Welcome everyone to our next webinar. So glad to see everybody here. We are just waiting for a few people to join us. So we are going to just wait for a few minutes or two just to let them log in. And if they're not here in the next minute or so, we will kick our session off. Good to see everyone here. It's nice to see a couple of good, familiar faces. And once we just let a few check in, we will be ready to set off. Okay, well, welcome everybody. It's good to see everyone here, and I am always grateful to everybody who checks into our session. It is a big thing to spend time listening to somebody else share some information, and I always appreciate anyone who does take the time out. We do take a fair amount of time to prepare these sessions and to let you guys know some more information about our space and what we do. And so this particular topic has been quite a lot of research into it as well, and also a lot of experience of what we're actually dealing with our clients at the moment. So we're looking forward to unpacking this. It's quite a big, detailed topic, so I'm really hoping that we've been able to unpack it well for you. If you do have questions, please feel free to fire them away. We do feel the need at times to share this platform, Livestorm, with you and what's available. So just so that you guys can get your head around it a little bit, there's a chat system on the sidebar that you can take a look at, and there's a question section, so you can use the question section or the chat bar to feedback to us. There's also an emoji section where you can use. It's always great to see some emojis coming up if you guys are getting concepts and getting things that we're saying. It helps me understand that you guys are still there, that you're still alive, that I haven't bored you to absolute death. So that's also good for me to see. So please feel free to use those. And then Tash will be dropping links into the system for you guys to see, just to kind of do some further reading along the way around different topics that we have, where we've expanded these things on our blog posts or anything else that we've put into. So moving on from that, we can jump into our session. Is everyone with me? All right. Okay, guys, so we're talking about this topic around consent to conversion. It is a really big topic. As most of you know, we work with clients across the globe, and we have been working really hard as a consultancy, agency, whatever people would call us these days, to really be a business that can deliver work across the globe. And this has become a really big topic and a really big conversation with a lot of our clients at the moment, is that how do we still convert business inside a consent-oriented environment that we find ourselves in? And it's becoming hotly contested and really difficult to find that competitive edge in the space that we find ourselves in. So let's dive in and see where we're at and what we can do about it. And so I'm having some technical issues. Give me 1 second here. Okay. So guys, if you haven't met me before, if we haven't chatted in any space, my name is Mike Saunders. I'm the CEO of DigitLab, and I've done a few other things in my time as a digital marketer and CRM specialist. But basically, I've been in the industry for 15 to 20 years and still enjoying it, still loving what we do. That's what I've been doing. At DigitLab, our main sort of space, and the easiest way to explain what we do is that we're a data-driven marketing company, and we focus on marketing and sales automation, specifically around email, SEO, advertising, and CRM, and all the things that come along with that. And one of the projects that we have that we've built internally for ourselves to really kind of keep ourselves sharp and understand what's going on in the world is Insight. There's a survey that we do called the State of Digital, and we do this every year. We'll invite you to this, and Tash will put some links up to this for you now. You can take part of the survey. You'll get the report for free at the end of the year when we release it in November. We release it at a conference in Cape Town every year, and this year we've really got some great participation in this. We're looking forward to releasing some really great insight into it. We've got a really good research team behind the numbers as well this year as well. We've been running it for, this will be going into our 3rd or 4th year now. So we've really got some nice historic data to lean on, and the insight has really been really strong to find out. The main thing that we look at is what really draws a strong return on investment for business, specifically around digital marketing platforms, channels, software. So what really makes a difference for businesses out there today, as opposed to trying to like jump on all the different hype trends around there. Everybody hates hype, and so we're trying to find a way to step past that as we go. And so with that kind of out the way there, thanks Tash for sharing that. We will jump into how we got here. So what actually has been happening in the DigitLab space that sort of got us into this environment where we felt we needed to actually start talking specifically about this topic. Okay. So for many years, we've been hosting people's websites. We've been doing so in very secure environments. And one of the reasons that we did that is that we did that because we understood and we started to see this huge need and trend that the more secure your hosting environments were, the better sort of reflection and better response you got from both SEO and from ad engines, particularly from Google, who seem to have the best kind of traction to understand what was going on in this space from a security perspective on your hosting. So site speed mattered, security mattered, HTTPS mattered, all of these things mattered to your ability to be able to get that incremental opportunity to supersede your competitors in this space. And so hosting and the way in which we were hosting and the tools and the systems and the servers and everything really started to matter to get your edge on your competitors in the digital space. And so we started this endeavor to kind of help our clients in the hosting space, and particularly in the WordPress space, because such a high volume of our clients had challenges in that space. Then because of that environment, we've been developing websites, and in our website journeys, we've also obviously, right from the word go, we've always been very enamored by search engine optimization and SEO, and more lately, we've seen this need to look at the AI engines and how that's impacting SEO as well, which can be a conversation for another day. But really, what we saw is this need to design content and business hubs to really attract customers and convert. Now, both privacy and consent as well as AI, have had massive impacts on these assets that we've been creating. So over the last 10, 15 years, we've really been able to kind of build these very valuable assets on this really secure hosting and lean on that asset to build clients' businesses. And now a lot of this is being threatened by what we've been seeing. So how does this kind of come up? So Cookie Yes became a partner of ours a few years ago. And so Cookie Yes is a cookie banner management platform, much like any of the other cookie banner platforms. And so as soon as this legal compliance thing came into play, that websites needed cookie banners and opt-in, particularly cookie banners across GDPR regions. In South Africa, it's POPIA, and there are a growing number of countries worldwide that need opt-in banners. And opt-in banners are reducing the number of trackable content leads that we can actually see on sites. And so we noticed this trend, and our clients are noticing this trend more and more, is that ad engines are getting less data, so we're getting less performance on ad engines, and we're getting less performance and ability to be able to understand the performance inside our actual web analytics. And so, yes, we can provide these cookie banners that can do the job and can keep us compliant, but we're seeing this antithesis of this data on the other end. And so what do we do with that? And then now looking at ad stacks and managing our client conversion campaigns and awareness campaigns, analytics, looking after their tag manager infrastructures, seeing the changeover from UA analytics to GA4, watching GA4 try and manage that within their own GA4 tag manager, advising the switch through to actually handling it not within GA4 itself, advising businesses to then make another change into GTM only, and having to navigate that with our clients again. Moving these different changes with all of these changes that are happening within Google has really shown that the whole ad industry is now struggling with these privacy changes that need to take place globally. And so we've been walking this road with every single ad platform as everybody kind of jumps through the hoops that they need to jump through around these privacy concerns. And all of it is an aid to try and get back to this happy advertising space where we had, say, 10 years ago, when these ad engines could just do whatever the hell they pleased and could make things happen and just get our favorite customers to our front door. And so this massive reduction of data access and therefore effectiveness has been taking place. And so then when we work with CRM with our customers, where we then started to do a lot of work with conversion API integration. So first party data, conversion API integration. Meta was one of the first ones to do it. Google got into it. TikTok does it. LinkedIn does it as well, where they're now asking for CRM related, or what they would term offline conversions, to then be sent back to the ad engine so that they can validate these conversions. Because if they can validate them at that point, this is data that they couldn't ordinarily get before, whereas beforehand they could make big assumptions about what was happening. Now they can't do that, so now they're asking businesses to share that data, and they're doing it with API access, which allows them to be able to get past things like Personal Information Acts, but it becomes very technical to manage and very difficult for organizations to handle over that. But it is the first step where a lot of these ad engines are now requesting the management of first-party data. And then because we're in that CRM space, building first-party data became this huge next step, because if we can't rely on the quality of ad engines anymore, we need to now say, well, where else can we find performance and where else can we generate return on investment for our clients? So migrating our clients into this first-party data system has become a big priority. And so this is the journey that brings us to the space of, like, how do we move and convert people inside this compliant world, this privacy space? And I'd love to be able to say that, like everybody talks about this idea that we're outside of this sort of third-party data, that there won't be any third-party cookies anywhere, and that all of these things are going to just disappear. We're not seeing that today. What we're seeing today is most likely that we're going to be working with a combination of both of these setups for a fair time to come. And especially today, we are going to be sitting in a combination of first and third party cookies for a long time forward. And so this is why we're sitting here today. This is the information that got us here. This is the journey that we've taken, both ourselves and with our client base and with some of the partners that we work with. We are very, very lucky that we get to work with some really big partners that have been doing a lot of work, both in the development space and in the theoretical space around how all of this comes together. So technically, we've been able to really lean on them to deliver a lot of these solutions and learn very fast in this space. So huge thanks to all of them. But with this journey in mind, we can kind of jump into what's in place. I do want to kind of just put out there at the moment, I know that we've sort of taken a look at the different people that are arriving. So I do know that we've got a lot of people from around the world, a few people in from the US, where you are primarily dealing with so your particular US audience is an opt-out only audience, which is very, very different to, say, GDPR, which is opt-in only. But a lot of US businesses have international audiences, and so GDPR and other opt-in policies become quite important to those audiences for you to be able to deal with. And the same within a GDPR audience, you need to be GDPR compliant, but there's big opportunities that are being missed when you have other global audiences that don't have those requirements if you are building your entire privacy policy all around GDPR. And so these, so just with the people that are here, understanding that there's a mix of people in the audience today that are looking at this from both opt-in, both opt-out, data policies that are mixed, that we have global businesses that are looking at multi-different audiences in that. So as well as people that are just looking at this purely from a POPIA or a GDPR perspective, which is one of the ones that get impacted the most. And so what's impacting this digital shift? There are a couple of things that are kind of happening at the time. And I'm not going to read all of these things to you. I've made them a little bit more text heavy than I normally do, so that when I share this with you, there's a little bit more here. And I've also been speaking to product things, because what is easier to understand is when you talk to how a product actually operates in the space utilizing some of this technology than just talking about it theoretically. So we've leaned on some of our product knowledge to be able to kind of expand on this. But if we talk about like how AI ad tools are using or want to use your data, smart bidding, Meta Advantage Plus, LinkedIn optimized delivery, all of these like cool new toys that are coming out of the ad space all depend on accurate data. I had a client recently who moved legitimately for very good reasons into a new ad account, but unknowingly, and in the move across, moved all of their campaigns from a very data-rich environment into an environment that has no data, but all the campaigns were smart optimized. And so their campaigns weren't performing because there was no data sitting in the system. And so now they've got to rebuild all of that data back up. Very frustrating process, but a necessary step in being able to build up their database so that they can actually rely on these AI engines again. These AI tools learn from CRM events. They learn from server-side signals, and they learn from real user interactions on your website, as well as with their ads themselves. They thrive on high quality data, which is why they're asking for CRM events, life cycle transfers from lead to sales qualified to marketing qualified to customer. If you can provide this information to them in some way, form or another, these become really powerful assets for them. Some of the challenges will just be the volume of that information. It's not enough in order to be able to, for it to be able to work off of for some organizations. But without this reliable information, these tools become relatively ineffective. And so what we see sometimes is that you've got an organization that's trying to use these AI tools, but they don't put enough budget behind them, so they're not seeing enough value, or they don't have enough CRM events actually firing to actually get the benefit and the value out of them. So they're expecting a lot out of these tool sets, but they're not getting enough value. And so either you need to play a very big long game, or you need to be able to kind of understand the need for these AI tools to actually have data to work with in order to work for you the best. And then on the other side of this, you've got these buyer intent signals. So on one side, we have AI working where it's accessing data, trying to custom identify audiences for you and put you in front of the right people in the ad engines. But then you've got more kind of like CRM-based tools that are now looking at this and saying, okay, well, hang on, if you give me all of your customer data and you give me access to your website or maybe to some of your other platforms that you have, something like HubSpot Breeze can actually now start to highlight, hey, your customers are visiting these pages on your website. These customers are engaging with these emails that you're sending out. These customers, and filter and access and bring this data up in front of your sales teams, in front of your marketers, in front of your executives, however you want this data to arrive to the right people. They can signal this type of behavior, and then you can create automations, you can create actions, tasks that need to be delivered, etc., throughout the organization to be able to drive these sales. You can utilize and enrich this data so that you can improve kind of targeting mechanisms and stuff like that as well. So we'll talk to that a bit later. I hope everyone's still with me. That's really kind of like our second slide in. So we've got a little way to go. And yeah, here we go. So just a quick backtrack to why third-party cookies mattered in the first place to anyone who's really new to this environment. Third-party cookies matter because historically what was taking place is that we would use these cookies, well, ad engines would use these cookies to track users across multiple websites. They would understand their behavior, their preferences, and then they would leverage this data to help us target more effectively as marketers. So we would then be able to go to them and say, we want to target these people with these interests. And it would use this third-party information that is gathered to be able to help us target effectively. But those days are now gone. And so now ad engines are trying to find new ways to be able to understand this information. And we are being expected to help it do that. And so that's the new game. That's what we're finding ourselves in. Please feel free to fire some questions through. I'm pretty certain this is not going to be question free. We'll try and free up some time at the end of the session for some questions. So let's just chat quickly around what's changed specifically around privacy. Okay, so privacy laws have definitely tightened, and this is not new. Okay, so all of us are generally struggling with this, or have been dealing with this. And if you're sitting in a European region, you've dealt with this. If you're dealing with any opt-in privacy scenario country, you've dealt with this. Okay, so regulations, GDPR, POPIA, CCPA in the US, all of these things have clear consent guidelines that you have to put into play, and browser consent restrictions are being put into place, usually with cookie banners. Okay, but then on top of that, you've got browsers like Safari and Firefox and even Chrome itself from a third-party cookie management system that are disrupting themselves and not allowing third-party cookies to sort of fire and run within the browser space itself. And so the browser doesn't allow things to take place. So all of these tracking mechanisms that ad engines ran with are disappearing. Ad blockers are being installed by users more and more and more and more. So there's a user interest that's growing all the time to actually not be tracked by all of these ad engines. And so consent is becoming mandatory. all the time. There was a news article in the UK where it was recently stated that you needed to have consented opt-in, but now it's become a mandatory thing that you have to have this mandatory user consent option. It's kind of like the same thing, but legally what they're basically saying is that it went from kind of like it would be a really nice to have to like if you don't have it, it's a problem. And so all of these laws are stepping themselves closer and closer and closer to consent management. So then you find this shift that has to take place to move towards first party data strategies. And so while we find ourselves in the flux of this, we've got to get our heads around how do we manage that transparency, how do we manage that first party data, how do we look after it, what do we do? And a big part of this has to do with your own data principles and data and privacy policies and everything that you handle with your lawyers, etc. And then a big chunk of that then comes back into the marketing and sales space and how we utilize that and manage that data flow in your ad engines, your website, your CRM systems, etc. And so that interface with your customer base and your prospect base then needs to be managed efficiently with your tech. So there we go. So here's a crazy thought, but compliance today is really becoming a bit of a competitive advantage for people. The biggest thing that compliance is bringing to the table is it's building a trust factor for a lot of brands and businesses. The cookie banner compliance up on a site does develop a sense of trust, the same way that HTTPS developed a sense of trust for websites across the board when it was in play. When I arrive on a site with a cookie banner, I feel like there's a sense of professionalism around this brand, and when there isn't one, I feel like a little bit kind of like concerned about whether or not this is a legitimate brand to work with. I feel quite happy to allow brands that I trust to track my behavior. Sometimes I want them to, because I want them to create a more personalized experience for me in those cases. And consumers are more savvy to why these things are in place. There are also ways to capture first-party information without necessarily needing cookies. And so that technology is growing more and more and more. So we can get away from that need to actually develop cookies off the back line of that. First-party data, once you have it in place, improves your targeting capability much more than what any third party could have given you. And this is what the likes of Meta and TikTok and LinkedIn and Google have all found with these CRM integrations with their offline conversions, is that the quality of the data that comes back to them is far greater than what they were dealing with third-party cookie information. And so they're able to do so much more with it. And so things like Facebook click IDs, TikTok click IDs, Google click IDs, etc. These identifiers in ad engines become very, very strong identifiers. They are literally the ID numbers for your customer's profile on different ad engines, and they become very, very strong identifiers that we should be knowledgeable about inside these engines. So if you don't have compliance, there's that loss of trust that becomes an issue. Poor data quality leads to ineffective targeting, especially when you now understand that, and we'll play to this a little bit more, but Google, and I believe other ad engines will follow, Google have created synced environments to cookie banners that allow their privacy policies to sync into cookie banner policies. So when you accept a cookie banner policy with a particular business, if they are running Google systems on their site, the consent to that cookie banner will also consent to the Google services attached to that, which means that you will now be able to access those Google services accordingly. And so this integration into cookie banners, I think, is a smart move with ad engines, and I believe we'll see more and more of that coming up. So a lack of cookie banner integration actually means you're going to have a lack of consent management into these ad engines going forward. So let's take a bit of a deeper look on the upside of this. I think the first thing that is really interesting to me is that the higher your consent marketing like drivers, you're going to see a higher return. And the one thing is that your databases get smaller, so the cost of you managing these databases gets lower, and your engagement on those databases gets much stronger. So I can give you an example. We had a client who had a database of she has a database of 250,000 clients, but her engagement rate on email was something ridiculously low, like 1.1% or something like that, because she just gathered these clients over 10 years. They've just been built up over time. She's got a really strong, big business, but she's just been gathering this data over these years. And so when we went into the compliance space, but also went into the engagement space, we managed to reduce the database down, but improve the engagement rates and actually get higher engagement off the back of, like in comparison to the bigger database, get higher engagement off it, because we're now working with consented and interested users, as opposed to just massive databases with a huge variety of interests and issues and so these smaller databases are more cost effective. We dropped her cost of managing that database by nearly $1,000. So it's really a strong tool to work with consented databases because of the return on investment that you're going to get out of that data at the end of the day. You end up with better quality leads because you're running with first-party data. Your your brand trust strength is stronger, so the people that are in there tend to respond better to you, and you get higher quality closes off the back of that. You have a long-term resilience, and I think this is such an important thing. Is that one of the biggest challenges I've had with all of these ad strategies that have gone out from a digital perspective is that we think in the short-term motion, and it's what I've loved about SEO is it gives you long-term resilience to the market. But we think in ads, so we got to add. But nowadays, what first-party data will do, and that first-party data, even sitting in ad engines, will do, is actually give us this long-term resilience to market shifts and to build our business off the back of. And so, and then quite clearly, it'll give us a lower risk of fines and keep the costs low just on the compliance. So here's your new reality. It is up to you to now own your data as much as humanly possible. You need to own the data. And this is not new to anyone who has had to develop opt-in strategies or deal with GDPR or any one of these structures. This is not a new conversation to you. If you are new to this, this is the number one thing you have to understand, is that you need to be the owner of your data. First-party data means you own it. So it needs to be collected directly off your website. You have to have accurate and reliable tracking of how you collected that data, where it was collected from, how it is engaged with. People need to be able to unsubscribe from that. You have to have records of all of these things. This can be a mission to manage, but it is important to do all of these things. It has to be fully under your control and ownership. It's important for this to take place because of the longevity of these databases for you in the long run. The biggest thing that this will do is give you the opportunity to personalize and automate these databases in the future. And then consent and server-side tracking. So what is quite key here is that if you have the consent in place and you can and you have the capability, like in say the GCM compliance arrangements with cookie banners, to transfer that consent, you can comply with all of your global privacy laws with something as simple as like a cookie banner tech stack. And manage that quite extensively and build out really strong ad strategies without having to do much on your actual CRM or your first-party data strategy. So it's becoming more accessible if you've got the right tech stack pieces in place. Server-side tracking becomes something that's really powerful. So SGTM, Google Tag Manager on your server, is something that a lot of people have been doing for quite some time. It does come at quite a fair cost because you've got to manage a server and you've got to pay for that server to be managed. And so it can be quite a cost for every single interaction that takes place on that. But the data that comes from it is very, very strong, and it becomes your data. It's housed on your servers. And then the consent mechanisms that come from that do increase your trust on your users. So combining all of this together becomes really, really important. And what a lot of people don't know is that if you have an opt-in policy and you live in any one of these environments, is that you actually have to have a fully tracked environment where you have a list of every single opt-in interaction, that every single interaction is tracked, and you have a list of all of those opt-ins and opt-outs of your cookie banners. I'm not going to get overly into the consequences from a legal perspective around no consent. That's not what we're here for. But I do want to speak to the consequences around this from a marketing perspective. If you do not have consent banners in place, and you do, and these banners are not in a space where they're integrating well within your ad metrics, okay, your analytics will be unreliable. Your conversions will drop because there will be gaps in your attribution. Your attribution model will break down because you will lose links, and the attribution carries of those links across the different networks. Your remarketing efforts will weaken because the actual remarketing databases won't grow. And then your AI tools themselves, both in the ad engine and potentially in your CRM, will not have much effectiveness because you're actually not transferring data to these things effectively with enough data. So this becomes the challenge of consent. We have to get the consent piece right. We have to put the right tech in place to actually transfer the data seamlessly both to ad engines and both into our CRM to be able to make these things happen effectively. So in short, tools like Cookie can do that from a building trust perspective. So I'll deal with the bottom one first. The only note I want to make here is that if you find yourself in a business that markets to a global audience, okay, there's something that needs to be said. Your responsibility is to provide the level of compliance associated to the country in which the user is from. So in other words, if my website is based in South Africa and my service is based in South Africa, I have someone from the US arrive, I have to provide a US level privacy policy cookie banner infrastructure for the US, or better. If someone from Europe does that, I have to do the same, but to a GDPR compliant environment, which basically means that in the US, I have to have an opt-out plan, and to the GDPR region, I have to have a GDPR opt-in plan. Now, why is this important? It's important because if I only apply, sitting in South Africa, a POPIA Act region, I can apply an opt-in, which will cover me for the entire planet. Everyone on the planet will be fine because that will be the strongest set. So from a compliance perspective, I'm set. No one legally, I'm going to have no issues. But from a marketing tracking capability, I have big issues. And this is where your problem will come in, is that on average, what we see taking place, this is just a quick snapshot of compliance metrics, is that if you take a look at the traffic that comes in, this is the last 30 days on our website, we have 7,300 odd visits on our website and only 660 total consents. So only 75% of that 660 accepted consent and allowed us to track them. And if you take a look at that, our Google Analytics only showed us 1,000 sessions. So I'm losing out on 6,000 at least users that are not allowing me to track. And that means that I lose the tracking capability both on the website and in my ads if I don't apply a global regional geo-trafficking solution. If I apply a geo-targeted solution, then when my traffic comes in from the US, I can target them and I can track them as much as I want unless they opt out. And the chances are they're going to opt out. As you can see, only 25% of these people rejected that banner. So I only had 25. I only had about 125 rejections. So if that's a US audience, I'm getting a very small rejection off the back of that. There are regions in the world today that still do not have any privacy policy, so you don't even have to display a banner to them. And so as a global company with global markets, you can still gain a lot of data around managing these businesses from those audiences without needing to comply to those particular audience groups, just by the way in which you manage the data on your cookie banners. So bear that in mind, please. So let's move on from cookie banners. It gets a bit tiring at the end of the day. But one of the nice things is that you can collect data in many different ways. Now, cookie banners is one of the tool sets that we have available to be able to manage the compliance issues. Now, thanks to Tash. Tash has just shared a link to cookie banner management and all the things you can think about. We put a blog post together around that recently, so you can dive into that if you want. And then what's great is that regardless of whether people accept your cookies or not, when they fill in a form and you get a little tick box to say you can use that information, okay, we can use hidden data fields to capture a variety of data points about that individual based on the activity that they've done on the website, okay? And so from this, we can actually gain ad attribution that Google couldn't because they haven't accepted the cookie banner. We can gain all sorts of different pieces of information based on URL points, UTM information, all this different stuff, that the URL that they're sitting on, the page they're sitting on, all this different thing. And so what we want to be able to do is essentially start to find ways to use our form data to capture as much information as possible on the submission of that form, so that we can start to segment and understand our customers better. So doing this then opens up, sorry, I'm going the other way, opens up opportunities. You can capture campaign information. And so something that's become really important to a lot of our clients is actually not worrying all that much about how the conversions on your ad traffic is actually, your ad engines are showing, but worrying more about what comes through your form data, because your form data is that ultimate endpoint of conversions, and then using the data that's captured on the form information to be able to make decisions about what campaigns are working and what's not working. And then being able to segment that data intelligently. So if I'm capturing, say, UTM data, I can capture all the way down to like knowing what keyword the person searched to find the campaign that they clicked on Google to get in there. And if I was working with high volumes of data, it's possible for me to set up an automation campaign that responded to that lead in a way that actually matched the keyword that they searched, if I really wanted to. That is a pipe dream for most businesses, but I'm just trying to establish how you can personalize information based on the type of data that you can capture off these this data off the back of a form. So finding ways to firstly capture more information from a form, and then also trigger more marketing automations off the back of that inside your CRM systems. Now, what I'm not advocating here is longer forms, but I am advocating capturing important information for you to be able to do your job properly as marketers. And then what you can now also do is you can take your lists where you've captured your Google Click IDs and your Facebook Click IDs and everything in your hidden data, and you can now use those IDs of your customer information, and you can feed all of that information back to Facebook, back to Google in a manual set. So even if you don't have all your APIs set up and all the bits and pieces, you can quite manually start to feed all of this information back into your ad engines. It's trickier in certain cases, different ad engines, depending on how sophisticated they are. But Google does it relatively well, especially if you've got Google enhanced conversions set up inside your system quite well. Is everyone still with me? Have I bored anyone to sleep? Do I need to yell loudly? See, we've got a question that's popped up here, which I'm not, it's for some reason not able to actually click on. There it is. Yeah. Contacts with gathered before new GDPR laws have been happily receiving marketing as customers. Can you continue to contact them now? So if my understanding, Georgia, around any GDPR and POPIA Act or anything like that, if a person is a customer, then you have a right to send them information. I would triple confirm that around your GDPR perspective, because I haven't had a need to dive specifically into that customer note on the GDPR law. But my understanding is that if a person is a customer, you have a legitimate reason to speak to them and to talk to them. However, if they became a customer, let's say you have a tire business and you talk to them, they bought tires from you. If you suddenly start a new business on the side selling forklifts, you can't go to those customers and start selling forklifts, because that's not why they engaged with you. So that's where you'll struggle. As long as whatever you're speaking to them about has to do with the reason that they purchased from you in the first place, you'll be fine. So if they're customers, you should be good to go. Legality of Hotjar, clarity. So what I can tell you is that if you've got so you would be able to capture the IDs on forms, because the IDs will be in the URLs normally. But those IDs generally, if I am following the tracking process in my head correctly, so a cookie banner will only activate Hotjar, and it will only activate clarity on the basis of those cookies being accepted. And that's on the basis of whether you do it as a first-party cookie or a third-party cookie. So once accepted, then the cookies are activated, which will then provide the IDs. So those IDs won't be available until such time as they are activated. However, the way that forms work is that they capture the Google, like what happens with Google Click IDs and Facebook Click IDs is they sit inherent in the browser. So you actually fetch them from the browser, not from the URL. So if that user has accepted on another website, as an example, and that Hotjar ID or Clarity ID is sitting in the browser still, there's a possibility, but it's a small possibility. You can't bank on it. There's a possibility you might actually be able to fetch that Hotjar ID, not necessarily from your browser experience, but from another one, and that it's just still sitting there. They may not have accepted your cookies, but they may have accepted someone else's. So you might fetch it by accident, in a sense. So if you put it in as a hidden field, you might be able to fetch it. Yeah, but you're not necessarily going to get any Hotjar information from that ID, because you won't be tracking them unless the cookie allows you to. Hope that makes sense. Okay, if no other questions, I'll move on. So this is something that I think people don't do enough of, and I think that there's huge missed opportunities here. So if you thought about, like, we used to get excited about having a database of 250,000 people, and it was the size of the database that mattered. But now we want to actually reduce the size of that database, one, because it allows us to work with smaller numbers and we don't have to pay as much, but also because now it's a compliant database and these are people that actually want to hear from us. It's nice and engaged. Now, what we should rather spend our money on is enhancing the data and enriching the data in that space. So HubSpot Breeze is one of the tool sets that they use, where they can actually use the data that they've got to enhance it with visitor traffic. So that what they actually do is you give it an idea of what your target market is, and then they use data around traffic on your website and interested parties around like what other people are searching online and doing, and they will actually find these interesting parties and businesses that are interested in the topics and services that you have, and they will actually start to highlight them inside your products and services. So that's what like a tool like HubSpot Breeze does. Apollo does a similar thing where that, like with TAM, in terms of like identifying individuals in the market. But the main reason I'm bringing Apollo to the table here is that it's got a really nice CRM sync tool where it will, especially for B2B businesses, where it will it will sync with your data and enrich it. And if you see in this particular screenshot, you'll see that it actually can track when people change jobs into new organizations as well. So it's really nice as a feature to be able to bring into your tool sets as you go along. So other things to think about. So we've spoken about correct cookie banner integration, so that it speaks to all your the correct ad engines. We've spoken about first-party cookie integrations. We've spoken about form integration and gathering the data correctly into your CRM. We've spoken about enriching that data. We've spoken about how AI can also then canvas big data sets itself to be able to find new customers for you within the data sets that it has and bring that to your CRM. That's the Breeze tool. Okay. Now, what can you be doing with your data tools, with your marketing, to be able to help and enhance that? So the big thing that I would say is progressively profile your audience. So don't try and do it all the time. Like, don't try and hammer people with everything. Gather the data slowly, potentially even in bite-sized pieces. So use tools like polls, like surveys, little different things that help you to be able to gather information about people, about your customers, that help you then profile key data points that would be interesting to you, that you could then help personalize or target or segment people accordingly for this. You can extend these things out into various different interactive tools and into various different channels like social media. So you could run a social media campaign that's more poll orientated, that helps you gather data, as opposed to just telling people how much you love the next public holiday. You could be doing something like that helps you gather data about your customers' interests and that kind of thing. And so doing things that help you build your understanding of your customer can become a really strong data strategy that you can be using, and you could use all of your channels to do this, and it could be a key engagement opportunity and a key way that you measure your effectiveness of all of those different marketing channels. So that's that. And then look for personalized follow-up strategies. So see your database as a means to kind of move people from one step to the next, and see how you can follow those people up. Personalizing your communications is such a key thing to be focusing on in your strategy, because now you've got a compliant database, you've got a rich database of data, and so there's so much that we can do that we can now start to think about how to really like speak to people like they want to be spoken to, and talk to them about their marketplace in a way that is meaningful to them. And so if we could get this right, if we could find ways to do this, and we could use the right tool sets. So one of the examples I'm going to show you, and then I'll drop back to here, is MailChimp does this very succinctly and simply. They'll sync to your online store, and then they bring your products into your email marketing. Okay, and they do it in like a data categorized way. So you can, here they've just done like a recommendations list, so coming off one of your recommendations, but they've also got ways that you can like build Shopify lists of what your user has actually like visited. So you can actually say like, these are our favorite, these are our top products, and it could actually be a list of all the things that the user has actually recently visited. And so you can show very personalized interactions. You can show very personalized product views per email that goes out to people just based on the interactions of on the website data. So these are very simple tool sets that make these things happen just by syncing data points together between systems. So not everything needs to be this massive, strategized, intense, big CRM lift. I always invite people to kind of think tactically, not strategically, when it comes to these automation lifts and things like that. So personalized content, look for opportunities to be personal, look for opportunities to do small interactions that will have great return on investment. And then if they prove themselves, then look for the means in which to automate that action going forward, and then you'll have a scalable marketing campaign going forward. And then look for ways to customize sales content and your content strategies. So how do we take information and sort of customize the content and the audiences and everything going forward based on the data that we have or the insights that we're learning, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I can give you some information about this. We used to completely customize every single proposal that we've ever written in our entire life from a strategic point of view. It would take us days to produce proposals for clients because, as you can tell, our work is actually very strategic at times, and it is very customized to a person's environment. And we literally bled into these proposals. But what we realized with the data that we were getting is no one was reading our proposals. Everyone actually made the decision of if they wanted to work with us based on maybe reading 1 or 2 pages in the front, which was like the summary version of our proposals. They primarily spend more of their time looking at our costings, and then they would make their final decision in a meeting with us at the end. And so they would validate us, check our pricing, essentially, double check our thinking of 1 or 2 pages, and then they would make the final call in the final meeting. Now, what in essence that meant for us is that we could change the way in which we delivered our sales pitch to people and reduce the time, one, that it took for us to get to people, and it also reduced the time it took to actually create content, and we could create more generic content for the longer form pieces that we needed to explain over and over and over and over again. And by doing this, we got better responses from people. Our content became more digestible, and we could create the same customized campaigns, but much faster, much easier, and deliver them better. And it all came off the back of the data that we could see that people weren't reading what we were producing. And so you can create and customize accordingly, and both impact the various different campaigns that you're looking at. This is an interesting idea around some customization. So this is a workflow where someone is basically saying, if someone hasn't engaged with our site for 30 days, then split them up by industry, by topic, and then send them a customized message that's specific to each one of those industries. And then based on that information, then do whatever it is that they need to do. And so these are ways that you can use the data that's in your system and trigger off things that ordinarily we wouldn't know that we could even trigger off. And I'm going to be closing up now with this last point, and then I'll summarize everything for you. About a week and a half ago, Google launched what they call Google Tag Gateway. And the best way I can explain this to you is I spoke about server-side tags. So Google Tag Gateway is like the middleman between server-side tag and not having anything at all, basically your third-party tag that would normally sit on your site. So if you've got a tool set, if you've got Amazon Cloudflare on your system, they integrate with Cloudflare, and you essentially, what it does is it copies a copy of all of your Google Tag Manager tags and onto your domain name through Google Cloudflare. And so you end up with first-party tags, data tags, and third-party data tags. Now, what this means is that you still need your compliance banner tracked, but it does mean that some of these first-party tags can still run in the background and provide aggregated data back to Google Tag Manager. And in my tests at the moment, they haven't been running long enough to see if I'm getting better data, like more data into our systems. But some guys have been running off the beta systems a while ago, and they're saying that they're getting 20 to 35% more traffic into their Google analytics, so they're getting more data into their systems. And but the main thing is that you're going to get a higher quality of data going back to your Google ad engines, your Google Analytics systems, and anywhere else that you're sending your Google events. That's only Google events based. So it's a really nice tool set that's just come out. Guys are testing. So it's worth looking into if you're looking at sending better quality data back into your Google engine so that your AI tools do better at the end of the day. So to close with, I'll leave you with what your new data stack should essentially start to look like in this consent to conversion thing. So again, starting with consent, then looking at your first party cookie environment, maybe integrating either directly with a server GTM, or luckily we can now look at something like Google Tag Gateway, smart forms with hidden data fields, or bringing in some AI to be able to capture information so that we can keep small forms but gather a lot of information on the users. Then bring in CRM integrations into this so that we can house this information, understand more, track more, and basically use AI to gather information on them. You've got your server-side events, which will be valuable, and then push all of that stuff into your ad platform AI. That's essentially what your data stack starts to look like when you look at consent to conversion. Okay. And what I am saying with CRM integration is I'm using that tool as a way to kind of encompass the whole idea of sales and marketing, personalization and automation. So and that's a whole new conversation that we don't have time for today. And then in general, all of this conversion conversation should be underpinned by a content-rich SEO campaign that's built to impact both your search and your AI reputation and visibility. We did a webinar on this a couple of weeks ago. We'll probably do some more content around this later in the year. So I think Tash has a link to that webinar, a direct link to the YouTube video around that webinar. We don't make this public. So if it is interesting to you, please hang on to that link. Because it's not a public link, so please hang on to it if you want to do it. It's also about an hour long around SEO and AI. So my final notes for you are this: own your data, your consent is crucial, own your platforms. This is so important. Too many clients, too many people that become our clients or that we talk to, their actual Google ad platform is not owned by them, or they don't know who owns their Facebook platform. The data that sits in there should be non-transferable. You need to move with that as you do things. Fuel all of your data with AI so that you can get better enrichment on the back of it. Personalize all your campaigns as much as possible, and then all of this gets underpinned with compliance. So build trust and transparency wherever you can with your customer base. And on the back of that, I would say to you that I think that the role of the marketer and the salesperson has changed quite drastically. We've become these custodians of trust, and our role still hasn't changed. I used to joke when I started studying marketing at university, is that it kind of feels like we've been taught the art of manipulating people. And it feels like we're still in that game in a sense, because we still have to try and convince people that what we have is great for them, and still need to do this in such a way. And when we went into digital, we had all these tools that we could do that with, and we still have these tools if you'll give us the permission to do this. So we're being told that we now need to prove that we're trustworthy to gain the confidence of the customers, so that they will allow us the privilege of being able to personalize their experience with us. And I think that is a really privileged place to be as a marketer. It changes the way we think about our marketing, and it's definitely changing the way we need to think about digital going forward. So that is it from me, and I do see that we have a few questions, and if you do have any others, please fire them away. From Jessica, so must every website have a cookie banner sign? Yes, so Jessica, every website, so the easiest way I can the easiest place I can point you to, the cookie banner article that Tash shared with you, which we will share after the session as well. That article, I laid out all the different country regions that are either opt-in or opt-out, or that don't have policies. So if there's no policy in existence, then you don't have to display a cookie banner to that country or in that country. If you are speaking to any audience in a country, then you have to comply to their policy. So if you are speaking to Europeans, you have to have a banner for opt-in. If you are speaking to Americans, you have to have, at the very least, a banner for opt-out. So that's the short answer to that. Georgia, they only use Google Analytics. Yes, you do need a banner for that, because Google Analytics actually will put about 3 or 4 cookies by default into there, and it's a third-party analytics tool. So it will ask you, you essentially, without trying to sound too conspiracy theorists like, but what you're essentially doing is selling your data to Google for them to track, for the service of them being able to give that information back to you, because Google uses that data to enhance their advertising. So you do need a banner to explain that that's what you're doing. And I think, Rinus, I've answered your Hotjar one, and Georgia, we've answered your one around the UK. So if they're on, just check the chat. I think that's everything. Okay. Are there any other questions? Anything else that we'd like to talk about? I think that is it. We do try and wrap these up in an hour. It's a big topic, so it's just after 12 o'clock. I appreciate everyone's time, and I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day. We do appreciate any feedback you can send us. We particularly like to know if the time of day suits you and the actual day suits you for these events, because we try to plan them that it suits everybody, especially if you are in a time zone. So we sit in GMT +2, so we tend to kind of do them in the mornings for that. But if you're in a time zone that it doesn't suit you, please let us know, and we'll see if there's enough people to support that. We'll look at running some in different time zones as well to support that. As I said, we're an agency that supports a global set of clients from all the way from the US all the way through to the Middle East. So we are comfortable and are willing and happy to support anyone anywhere. So yeah, Guys, thanks so much. If you do have any questions around any of the tool sets, any of the data sets, any of the AI tools, anything that you would like us to chat about, please feel free to give us a shout. We'd be happy to talk you through them. Thanks a ton, guys.